Um, okay, great. Okay. Um, as I said, welcome everyone to today's webinar. We will be having a flow where Sharonté will be starting off, and then we'll hear from Jennifer and Alexis about their experience. And at the end, we do have a short survey that very short that we'll be sharing that we really appreciate if everyone would fill out, just so that we can gather more information to be able to report back to our grant funder, and to be able to improve upon the webinars moving forward. So I'd like to invite Sharonté Williams from the USDA to begin and start her presentation. And at the very end, I didn't mention this, at the very end, we'll have a question and answer portion that you can put your questions in the chat, and I'll be monitoring the chat to make sure that we can get to those at the end.
All right, can you, let me make sure I'm on mute, off mute. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, oh yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay, you can see my PowerPoint. Okay, that's always a plus. All right. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sharonté Williams, the Grants and Agreements Coordinator for the Office of Urban Agriculture and Innovative Production. Thanks to Catherine and also the local Farm Service Agency and the Natural Resources Conservation Service for connecting us today for this opportunity to share more about our programs that we have. I know it's been a long time coming. We've been trying to set this up for a couple of months now, but in addition to myself, you hear from a couple of our recipients from our programs after I present, which I believe would be helpful to hear from them and their perspective of how their experience has been and exactly what they're doing with their projects. I will also say that at this point within the state of Pennsylvania, we do have about 7 projects that are across the state. So if you're not aware of our programs, hopefully by the end you will be, and in the future, you will take be able to take the opportunity and apply for some of the programs and resources that we have available. So I'll go ahead and get started so you can learn more about who we are. So we are the Office of Urban Agriculture and Innovative Production, also referred to as OUAIP. I know the acronym is a mouthful, but we are leading the way when it comes to the department of USDA to promote availability of programs for all sizes and types of operations. So note that I said all sizes and all types of operations. So the office was authorized back in 2018 with the 2018 Farm Bill to encourage and promote urban, indoor, and other emergent agriculture practices. There has been a recognition that USDA has not been fully present in the past to serve urban and innovative stakeholders, and the office was created to fill that void in that gap. So our office is housed under the Natural Resources Conservation Service. We're under that umbrella, and our mission as our office is, as it stands today, is to support the range of production viewed on the slide as you see it, from community gardens, urban farms, rooftop gardens. We work across agencies and offices to support the next generation of agriculture, including indoor farming and vertical technology. All of the phonics, the hydroponics, aquaponics, aeroponics, all those things. So finally, an important component of our office is also working with composting and food waste reduction. So both of which helps at the end of the day divert food from the landfill. And we all know with food waste going to the landfill, that's putting off harmful gases that we're breathing in. But also compost is also essential when it comes to the amendment to help build up the soil quality in the food waste production part of the ecosystem. And then also ensuring all the energy you put into the food we eat is beneficial to all people. And also I have a QR code you can scan on that takes you directly to our website. So what is OUIP and what are some of our responsibilities? What do we do? We administer our own technical and financial assistance programs and help market other USDA programs as well, and federal assistance to urban and innovative stakeholders. As I said, we are under the umbrella of NRCS, but we are housed, we work across departments. So we work with, you probably heard of farm service agencies, National Institute of Food Agriculture, Agricultural Marketing Service. We work across all of those agencies within USDA. So our responsibilities can be organized into what we refer to as 6 main areas: the Urban Agriculture and Innovative Production Federal Advisory Committee, the Composting and Food Waste Reduction Agreements Program, Urban Agriculture and Innovative Production Grant Program, People's Garden Initiative, USDA Coordination, and external engagement for stakeholder relations, including other federal agencies, nonprofits, private industry, and schools as well. So the Urban Agriculture and Innovative Production Grant Program, I will say our programs are competitive. I'll get into that in a little bit. But the first of our flagship program is called the Urban Agriculture and Innovative Production Grant Program we refer to as UAIP. UAIP grants are competitive. They support urban agriculture and innovative activities for planning purposes and implementation projects, which can include but not limited to activities such as surveys, assessments, feasibility studies, business plan creation, job training, mentoring, increasing food production, purchasing equipment, and limited land acquisition and land access. So since the launch of the program in 2020, the office has invested $47.5 million in 184 grants at this point. We have grants in 41 states and territories, including agreements with 2 tribal organizations, the District of Columbia, so the DC area, and 2 territories, but eligibility when it comes to this program is limited to certain entity types. The easiest way to remember this is that majority in terms of applications we receive for this program do come from nonprofits. So your nonprofits, those that are 50C13 and non-50C13 status, schools that serve kindergarten through grade 12s, your school districts, special districts, which you may know as soil and water conservation districts locally, they are eligible, and tribal governments, tribal serving organizations are eligible as well. So these grants are, again, competitive, that support urban agriculture overall and innovative production activities across the country. So our successful recipients, which you'll hear from in a little bit, have shown that they have been able to target areas where there's a lack of fresh food and vegetables on a regular basis in underserved areas, and being able to fill that void to make sure folks do have access to food. So proposals for this program do have to be designed to support multiple folks, multiple gardeners, farmers, producers, not just individuals. So individuals cannot apply or not eligible to apply for this program. In addition to promoting urban and innovative practices, UAIP can also include, in some cases, culturally relevant farming practices, which we do have some projects that do just that. There is not a match of funds required for the grant program, but the minimum is $75,000, max $350,000. And so it's a grant. You do not pay it back per se, but this one does not have a match of funds. Kind of talked about this already in terms of eligibility, who is eligible to apply. It's your nonprofits that have a 501c3 status or without 501c3 status. And then units of local government, which are your city, townships, governments, municipalities, school districts, soil and water conservation districts, the tribal governments. And with the tribes, that includes those that are state and or federally recognized as well. And important note about the schools, it is schools that are serving kindergarten through grade 12. Right now, if you've been tracking our office, we do have the UIP notice of funding opportunity is open right now. It actually closes tonight at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. So obviously at this point, if you have not seen it before now, may not have time to apply today or by tonight, but there's always time to prepare for next year. We do keep the information in terms of a few tools that we have. You'll have the notice of funding opportunity that will be on the website up till, I believe it's like 8 weeks after the notice closes. So if you want to get a sneak peek for next year to kind of see what's required, you can do that and download it now. After that, it goes away off the website from grants.gov. But then we do have a frequently asked question document that's also on the website, and we have a pre-recorded webinar that we do every year that walks you through the notice of funding opportunity as well. So project types that we offer for the UAP program can be either planning or implementation. These are activities where we can fund, you may be in a mode where you're in that planning phase. You don't necessarily know or have all your resources in place just yet, and you're not ready to hit the ground running. So you can apply to do that planning phase where you're doing your surveys, your assessment, feasibility studies. You may need to get some education materials going first before you actually are ready to implement a project. On the implementation side, of course, you're in a mode where you know what you want to do and you're ready to go and hit the ground running to do your job training or your mentoring or your implementation of going and actually doing your production, and you're ready to go or doing your training. You can apply for that as well. It's either one or the other. You cannot commingle and do both in one proposal. So most folks majority of our projects do come in with the implementation side of things, but we do have a few that are in that planning phase as well. So in terms of priorities for folks that are interested in the program and are ready to apply and hit the ground running, whether it be you are applying for planning activities or those implementation activities, we do ask that you be able to demonstrate, the area of need where you are in your community. What is that need, and who are your area that you're targeting in the community, and make sure you have a community focus and show that you can or have demonstrated at least 3 years or more serving in those underserved areas in a community where there is a lack of food available, or food deserts, if you want to use that term as well. And then having the ability to carry out your project from beginning to end, and having collaboration between partners. So we do ask that you have at least 2 or more partner organizations to partner with you. And if you've ever applied for any grant, partnerships, you can't do it on your own. Although I know some folks think, oh, I can just do it by myself. You cannot. So we do ask that you have at least 2, it says 1, but at least 2 to make things work out for your project, at least going into it. And then being able to show that you can demonstrate, handle the fiscal accountability and the management of your grant throughout the process, its life cycle. These grants, this year we made a change. They are 3 years in length for 36 months. This is a map that just kind of shows you where the projects are. If you're really interested, you'll see where you all are located. If you're in Pennsylvania, the Northeast area, we have several projects. New York is heavy, New Jersey area on the Northeast side of the world, but they're also across the nation, spread out all the way to Alaska. Honolulu's on the map, even Puerto Rico. So this is up to today. So we'll be able to expand this map. Hopefully, the central part of the world on west, we'll be able to fill some of those in. We do have some states we don't have projects. So hopefully this go around, we'll be able to, my goal was to, at least by 2025, to have at least 1 project active in each state. So hopefully we'll be able to do that. Another program we refer to as our flagship program is the composting and food waste reduction program. It's a cooperative agreement program. And we refer to it as CFWR. It provides funding to local governments, schools, the tribes again, and for a way to develop and test strategies for planning and implementing compost plans for food and waste reduction in your city or your town. Very popular program. It is also competitive. It is a cooperative agreement. So this program does require a match of funds of 25%, which can be in kind when it comes to our CFWR program. And it is a pilot. So with this project, this program is for 2 years in length. Although nonprofits are not eligible, that does not stop a nonprofit from partnering with a eligible entity. Same goes for our UAP program. So even though an entity may not be eligible, someone can always partner with the eligible entity to carry out a project. But again, fairly new program, started back in 2020. At this point, we have about 82 agreements and have invested about $12 million in these projects, pilot projects. So we have agreements that are in about 33 states and territories. But eligibility is limited to, again, certain entity types. Like UAP, you can't be in all community types, including rural, urban, and suburban. And that's something I want to stress about. I know our office is called urban, and then our programmers are saying urban, but USDA does not define the term urban. So don't let the term urban deter you from being interested in these programs, because you may be thinking, well, I'm not in an urban setting or I'm in a rural area. It does not matter, because at the end of the day, food access is real no matter where you're at. But the CFWR projects have to address producing composting or compost improving soil quality, increasing rainwater absorption, reducing municipal food waste, and diverting food waste from the landfill to help increase access to compost for ag producers. And we'll also try to, with this, it's considered a pilot because it's only for 2 years, with the intent that you would be able to carry on and be able to self-sustain after 2 years of the project. But under the CFWR project, we are trying to engage with concerted efforts to bring together the private sector or private producers and their local governments to help identify, food waste solutions and what to do better in teaching people how to compost, what we can do, in the long run in the future, and helping to foster those connections between the sectors like controlled environment agriculture, urban agriculture, and municipal waste management. So, in terms of money funds, it's a minimum of $75,000 up to $350,000. It's actually a typo. It should be $400,000 dollars. And again, it is in kind and matching the funds. Important to have that cross collaboration or cross partnership with other entities as well, at least 2 or more. I just can't see why. To me, just personally, I feel like the more partnerships you have in place and support, the better off your project will be. Right now, we have not announced the FY24 notice of funding opportunity for this program. We expect at this point for it to be announced, hopefully by the end of the month, if not early May. If you sign up for updates from our office, you'll be able to firsthand get that announcement when it does come out. Again, in terms of applicant eligibility, your local governments, township, school districts, tribal governments, Indian tribes, Native American tribal, whether federal recognized or state, and special districts, which are, you may know as the soil and water conservation districts. Priorities for CFWR, 4 main priorities. Making sure, trying to anticipate and demonstrate you have the economic benefit for the targeted community you're working in or you live in, and being able to incorporate plans that will include or make compost accessible to everybody in the agriculture community, producers, including community gardeners, the schools, school gardens, and producers as well. And having a way to integrate food waste reduction strategies, including those innovative food recovery efforts such as food gleaning, storage, preservation techniques, and include a a plan that describes collaboration with multiple partners. Here's again just a map of kind of where to get an idea where the CFWR projects are. A little heavy on the East Coast, but again, hopefully this year we'll be able to sprinkle in the Central to the West Coast. Alaska has been leading the way when it comes to CFWR due to some of the issues they have there. So connecting everything and what does this all mean? You know, housed under, our office is housed under Urban Agriculture Office. Well, the audience, everybody always asks the question, like, what does this mean exactly? What are we doing here? You know, so USDA is at the point where trying to broaden its focus and to examine and analyze as well as improve processes within the overall food system, not just one part of it, but what does it all look like? So it starts with making sure we're producing food for a community that can find its way to utilize all the resources that are available to them. And then as well, you know, what remains as an edible source can go back to compost. So it comes full circle, which is then utilized by some of the same producers that grow healthy food again. So through these two programs, OUIP and USDA as a whole are learning how different segments of the food system can interact with each other. And then with the notion of stakeholders and people in mind that affect them. So as no two situations are the same, OUIP is working through these programs as well as other partnerships, like I mentioned earlier, working with other agencies and other stakeholders to help identify best practices for local policies that can help foster the wholesome, overall healthy and inclusive food systems that we all need and want to have as American citizens in our communities. So one other thing that we do have in our office is the People's Garden. You're probably thinking again, what does that mean exactly? People's Garden is a network of gardens across the country. And with that program, we aim to provide resources to gardens, encourage communication and collaboration, and highlight all of the amazing things people are doing in their communities to grow healthy food and provide green spaces. So a garden type can include traditional community gardens, producing food for themselves and others, having a wildlife component where you do have wildlife habitat available, which includes pollinators, beneficial insects and bird-friendly gardens, green spaces, and having a space where you can teach people or an educational component and training space for whether it be adults, seniors, youth, your kids, and having a way to show or teach people, you know, workforce development, which is also important. And having that continuing education ongoing can be churches as well in terms of faith-based organizations. Just the list goes on and on. So People's Garden criteria, it's pretty simple. It's free to participate in the network. There are 3 criteria you have to participate, which means by joining, submitting your People's Garden registration form, which here's a link. I think my next slide has a link to the actual form itself. But grow uses sustainable practices that benefit people and wildlife. There are many ways to grow sustainably, whatever that looks like to you. And finally, being able to teach people locally about the resilient food system and what that looks like where you are. And here's a map of where the People's Gardens are across the country right now as it stands. Again, heavy on the East Coast. This is a link to register and also a QR code to the web page itself. So benefits, what does that mean? Why do I need to do this? Well, benefits for participating, you will receive a People's Garden sign if you would like. You will have access to the webinar series, access to Extension Foundation Connect platform, which is similar to like a social media platform where you will be able to share information with others and they share with you as well. And an opportunity to highlight gardens. So we do highlight gardens in our newsletter from time to time as well, that are on the map. And social media and those sorts of things. In terms of resources, we do have a few things that may be of interest. We have the Urban Agriculture at a Glance document, which houses urban agricultural resources within USDA. It's a pretty extensive document, but if you've never worked with USDA before and you don't know where to start, it's the perfect, I think, document to look at. And I can send a PDF copy of it as well, so you can have it on hand to go through. But if you have an idea about something that you want to do urban and kind of don't know where to start, it's a great resource. And it breaks down all agencies in the different loans, microloans, grants, and cooperative agreements that are available. Also, we have our urban agriculture and innovative production newsletter that we do highlight different resources across USDA and other federal resources besides USDA as well. And if you're on the innovative side, we do have the innovative production website that will be a resource to you as well. And we have a People's Garden brochure. And that is it. These are links to our website and my email address and our general email address for questions. And I think that's it. That is it for me.
Thank you so much, Sharonté. That was really comprehensive. And it all sounds great. There are just a couple questions that I think might be better to have answered quickly now, if we could. Are fiscally sponsored projects eligible? So folks that have a fiscal sponsor.
I'm not sure what do you mean by fiscal sponsor?
So they're not technically a 501c3. They have someone else that's the outside source that takes on that fiscal sponsorship.
Okay, so if it's, like I mentioned earlier, if there is another, you may not be eligible yourself and you have you're partnering with someone else that is, they can be the main applicant.
Okay.
If they meet the criteria of a 501c3 or those other entities, then they could apply. And then the entity that's not eligible could still be a partner, but whoever submits that application needs to be an eligible entity.
Okay. Great. I just want to make sure that that was directly answered, as it was one of the questions. And then there's another question. Are these programs only for US-based projects or globally?
They are US and US territories.
Okay. Great. Thank you. All right. So next we will hear from Jennifer Anderson from Trellis for Tomorrow. And she'll kind of give her overview of their experience with the program.
Awesome. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Sharonté. I appreciate that. It was great because having been a USDA recipient or current USDA recipient and having just submitted the application that she mentioned was due today, I actually learned a couple things today from that presentation and solidified some things. So thank you for that. And I really encourage everyone to ask questions because I know that when I went through this process the first time, I had a lot of questions. And I will say also, I found that the USDA office, like the people listed in the application to contact, I don't know, Alexis, if you felt this way too, or if you reached out, but they're super responsive. And I mean, like right away, they'll get back to you pretty much within the same day, if not within a couple of hours. You can call them, like I'm sure they'd rather you read everything and do all of the reason, try to find the answer yourself. But I will say that if you have questions as we're going through this, please just shout them out or put them in the chat or something like that. It's a relatively small group, so we can make this informal. But so Trellis for Tomorrow, our organization, we're based in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, and we also have a satellite office or another office in Pottstown. We've been around for 20 years. I've been the executive director for the last 5+ years. And we applied for a UAIP grant in 2020. I think it was actually the end of 2021, but then we were awarded in 2022. And our organization does a number of things, but predominantly we focus very heavily on kind of building sustainable systems for growing food. So distributed food systems, trying to help people grow locally in large gardens, small farms, and now hydroponic, aquaponic systems. And we also do a lot of training and education, career readiness, workforce preparedness for youth. So, and some of those things we do together in gardens, some of them we do separately. But we have about, at this point, close to 40 different installations with partnerships across a 5-county area. So we're growing about 50,000 pounds of produce in partnership with organizations every year. So our USDA UAIP project, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm not going to take you through this whole presentation, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. Catherine, can you see that? Are we good? Yeah, okay, good. I think I see you saying yes. So, okay. So we basically submitted for a large number of gardens and some hydroponic installations that we wanted to do. In this one, this presentation is focused on the Phoenixville side of things, but both in Phoenixville and Pottstown. And actually,
Jennifer, can you
Yeah.
share, put it into this presentation mode?
Yeah, I can. Hold on a second. Can you, if I do that, you can, are you seeing the right one?
Yes, now we are.
Okay.
There we go.
I just
Thanks.
I was gonna skip around and I just didn't want to okay. So this is an example of the two areas, Pottstown and Phoenixville. And this is a diagram that we submitted with our grant to help people understand the vision that we were going for. We already had a number of things happening in Pottstown, a number of places where we were growing food in partnership with youth and other organizations. And we wanted to expand this further to add also hydroponic systems in that, and as well make more connections. So you can see basically this diagram is showing how we were looking to improve, add to our growing, these green areas are where we are helping organizations to grow produce, and then where all of that was going to go, in some cases direct to households and residences in the area, in some cases to other organizations like the Pottstown Cluster of Religious Communities, which is a food pantry, or the Delia and Dean Market. So that's the idea, is to have more and more places locally where people are growing food, whether it's gardens and outdoors or it's hydroponic systems indoors. And so I'll give you some examples of some of the projects that we've completed already through this grant. So the Reservoir Park Community Garden was an interesting one. I'm going to skip through a bunch of slides because this is a big presentation and I just wanted to show you a couple of different things. So the original site, you can see this area, if you can see it, it's sort of aerial view of a very haphazard community garden that was in the heart of Phoenixville. And it was a whole bunch of stakeholder gardeners. But there was a lot of discontent with respect to the process, as well as people that were living around it felt like it was an eyesore, that it wasn't well structured and organized. So we came in with the garden vision that you see here in the middle, which is basically split. It's a stakeholder garden on one side and one of our food for all gardens on the other side. Our food for all gardens are where people can come in and work with us at specific times to grow food in community with each other. They can take that food home, they can learn and get educated, they can take as much as they want home, but the rest of that, almost 90% of that, goes to local food banks and food pantries. The other side, the stakeholder garden side, is for people to have their own garden beds, and they can still benefit from the education that's being provided and all of the facilities on the food for all side, but it is for their own purposes. So this is really the garden vision that we put together with compost sites, a wash station, all kinds of things. And I'm just going to quickly flip through. You can see the transformation process with lots of volunteers and community partners. You can see this is starting to build that one side. This is our Kanban board and our wash station. So this is it in more full bloom. So you can see that that project really took off and is doing incredibly well, growing lots and lots of produce and involving lots of people. So this was actually early on, but thousands of pounds have been harvested in just the last year. Our second project was the Phoenixville YMCA, which basically they had a spot here you can see that was really not being utilized. It was just sort of a grassy area in front of the childcare playground. And we had a vision in partnership with the Phoenixville Y to create an educational and a fun garden space for the kids to play and for us to be able to do joint programming, particularly for young people. So this is some of our team building and working with the Y. We tend to try to get everybody out. And you can see it sort of in progress here. And then we're building this trellis walkway, which was actually the idea of the executive director at the Y. Kids love it. So at the end, it's super cute and they run around, and we do programming for much younger children here. And it's a really fun garden, and it's really doing great. People love it. We've done a lot of educational sessions there. And then the third one I was going to highlight is Renaissance Academy, which is also in Phoenixville. So this is a charter school that had a lot of students that were interested in gardening. It dovetails with one of our seed skills programs that we do. It's a paid work experience for youth that are 12 to 18, is sort of right behind this. And so a lot of the students from here are involved in that program, and they wanted to get something like a garden program going in their school. And they had this empty sort of play area, gathering courtyard area. They didn't want to take it all up, but they wanted to do some framed raised beds there and some other installations, and they've been super engaged. They have a garden club, which we call Garden Cruise. We have a couple of different garden club models from different organizations, and you can see the kids really helping in getting involved. So this is the built version. And I actually have a quick update even from today, literally from today, for this garden that I was going to show you, but my screen is being a little temperamental. Give me 1 second. Is it going to let me do this? I'm going to stop sharing for just a second and see if I can get this to come up. I'll show you the work being done today with the kids. Okay, see if I can get this. You're going to see a little bit of our internal messaging system here. So, but I don't think anybody will mind. Okay. All right. Can you see that? Yes. Okay. So this is from today, literally fresh off the press. These, if you guys can see, these are all the kids at that same garden and having a blast. And then we have our garden. So this was some of the other kids in that garden. Some of them said that this is the first time they've ever pulled a carrot out of the ground, ever had that experience of, of growing something and seeing it actually come out of the ground and be able to take it with them. And then our older students that are in the garden club, they actually set up the activities today for the younger kids. And so they did that, and then they supported the younger kids in learning how to grow the food. So just some examples of our work with the UAIP grant. There's more going on. We're going to be installing some hydroponic flex farms very shortly here in Pottstown. Pretty excited about that. They're really, really cool. And yeah, there's a lot happening, but the grant has been very helpful, and the support and the resources from the USDA have also been really, really helpful, and the connections that we've made too. So hopefully, I don't know, Catherine, is that kind of what you were hoping to cover? Is that?
That's great. That's great. Yeah. Yep. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Those are really amazing projects. And it's so cool to see that. I mean, it's perfect weather here, so it's great day for getting kids in the dirt. So
Finally,
really
it's been a few weeks of cold and whatnot.
Weather has not been great around here. So
yeah.
So glad to see that. And I'm sure Sharonté is happy to see that's coming together too. Well, thank you again for that. And then next we're going to be hearing from Alexis to Santi, coordinator from Haverford Township.
Thank you so much. And that was an amazing presentation. So lovely to see all the pictures and the amazing work you guys are doing. So
thank you.
yeah. I'm gonna just share my screen quick. Actually, I'm gonna switch to the other. I have like 4 versions of this presentation open, so let me find the right one. Here. Then
I have the one
presenter.
you sent me if you need me to get that.
I think I got it. Is that up in presenter mode?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So yeah, I am the special projects coordinator of Haverford Township. Started last year in June, which is very shortly after we were awarded this grant, which is the compost and food waste reduction grant, or agreement maybe is how it's framed from USDA. But basically got in and we started doing implementation. So I was not a part of writing this grant. The EAC members in the township were very pivotal in getting that done. And so we really jumped right into implementation, which has been really exciting. So I kind of just have a little overview of some of the objectives that our grant covers. So we have kind of 7 large goals for this grant. So these first 4 are kind of the biggest ones and the most important that we have found. And the first piece is that we want to divert pumpkin waste to farms for animal feed. So we had our first collection this past fall and had great success with it and a lot of interaction. So that was very exciting to see some of those things start to fall into place. And we also have these 2 different incentives trying to expand composting in the township. So the first is a 2 months free program with 2 different partners we have, which is Mother Compost and Easy Composting in the area. So new residents who are starting with these companies can get 2 months free. We've recently actually expanded it to 4 months in the hopes of increasing some participation and getting more people involved. So we've made shifts throughout this and we've learned a lot. So, but USDA has been wonderful and very receptive in working with us as we, are learning alongside them. We also offer $30 subsidized bins for backyard composting, which has been a really great success. A lot of people have been interested in that, and we've seen great numbers of increase in our backyard composting residents. And then we also have focused a lot on education, not only for the residents, but also for municipal staff, which is something I head here at the Township building. But for residents, we have different webinars for the public, and we have those in person and virtual opportunities for them as well. So those are big pieces of the grant that we received last year. Some of the other aspects are doing composting in the Township building, which we've had successful pickups bi-weekly at the Township building and at the Community Recreation and Environmental Center. So that's great. There's other locations that we've put buckets in which we're still working on getting a little bit more interaction with. So that's where that education piece comes in and has proved to be very important in this entire grant. And the work we do with it. Some of the other pieces are composting at large township events. So we have one called Haverford Township Days, usually in the fall. So we would have different bins available for people to put their compost in, and those would be run by Mother Compost or Easy Composting, which are the 2 groups we partnered with for this grant. And then we also have probably one of the biggest pieces, I should say, is the composting study, which is just wrapped up. Our person who completed the study just presented last week. So we're really excited to see that come to fruition. And they looked at the feasibility of starting township-wide composting. So I have a slide on that in a moment that kind of reviews it. But it was a very important piece of this study because we were hoping it could give us the information of what's next and how we could potentially implement the composting at a township-wide scale. So a sort of baseline that we started at when we were doing this grant was around 16,000 households in the township utilize the trash service, and that includes trash, recycling, and brush. and the Haverford Township personnel performs all of those hauling activities. So these were pieces that came into play when our person who we contracted for the work to do the study looked into what then the feasibility would be for township-wide composting. So the study, the goal was really to look in, as I mentioned, that feasibility, and that implementation of a curbside composting collection. And the two major components that our contractor looked into was if we were to go through a third-party contracted curbside service, or have the township in-house do the collection. So it was really exciting to see those sorts of questions come to fruition, be answered, and kind of have maybe a direction for what's next. And so that's something that we're really happy to have come out of this grant. As we do have another year left, we're still working on trying to increase our participation with the different incentives and really ramp up our educational pieces. But some project status pieces to note is that we had 16,000 pounds of pumpkins collected in 2023, and that was just in that fall period. We've had 60 households start using the curbside composting service. 34 households started backyard composting since the start of the grant, and that's grown a lot in this first quarter of the year. We've held composting workshops virtually so far, but we have some in-person ones planned. And then, as I kind of mentioned throughout, we had some successful biweekly pickups. Something we did notice was that at the township events, we've had some struggles with having people participate in placing their food in the composting bins. So when we've had waste diverters present at the bins, so someone just kind of manning that area, that was successful in helping people learn kind of where to put their food and put the different materials in what bin. And it was a really great opportunity for education. So we're trying to adapt and learn about what we can do better for each next event as they come. And then, yes, our consultant presented findings at the commissioners meeting last Monday. So it was great to see that come to fruition and kind of wrap up. So really, we've been so thankful to have this grant. It's allowed us to push forward the waste management portion of our climate action plan. And that includes a 20% reduction of community-wide waste by 2035. So this grant fits very well into accomplishing that goal. And we also feel that this grant's allowed us to serve as a model for other townships in the area. Lower Merion's right next door to us, and they have been meeting with us and asking questions about how they can do something similar or implement different pilot programs of composting in their township. So we're really happy to stand as a model for other people and hopefully inspire other people to, go for funding and also to try to implement similar things in their spaces. So that was everything I had, and I guess we're running right into questions after that. So that's great. And here's my information.
Thank you, Alexis. That was fantastic. So glad to hear that this project has been successful and bringing value to the township. That's what it's supposed to do. So that's great. I think now we can open up the question and answer portion. Feel free, it's a smaller group. If you have questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or raise your hand, or put another question in the chat to one of our experts here. We will be sharing. I know that was a question, I answered on behalf of everybody, but I'm able to share everyone's presentations. What if anyone, Jennifer, you had a larger presentation, but if you wanted to share.
Yeah, I can get it to you. Yeah.
Okay.
I can get it to you in a PDF. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, we will be sharing all the information with everybody. So you'll be able to check back on that.
And I can add to while we're waiting on other questions. Jennifer mentioned something that I probably didn't really speak to, but when the notice of funding opportunity is open, like today's the last day. Feels like a long time coming, but typically the UAIP grant is open for 60 days, and then the CFWR notice of funding opportunity is open for 90 days. So there's a difference timing wise. And so far we've been able to announce these every year, and they come out just this year. I felt we were a little late, but they come out around the same time, between January and February. This year with CFWR, we're a little bit behind, but I would have liked for it to go out back in a couple months ago. But it's coming, so we anticipate to have it every year. But when we do get into that mode of where it's open and it's live on grants.gov, because our programs are competitive, we only respond to questions generally. So once we get into that mode, we do have someone, we have a grants management specialist. If you go to the grants.gov website while it's live, it has a contact person, and you can email that person and they'll respond to your question. And then for some kind of way, if it still gets to us, we'll still connect you to that one person, whoever that is at that point in time, to get your question answered. But I do tell folks we spend a lot of time getting that notice of funding opportunity to where it is, to where it's on grants.gov. It takes a lot of work to put that document together. So we like to tell people to read for understanding, make sure it's a fit for what you're trying to do or you think you're trying to do. And then we do have all the information you need is included. And we do have, like I mentioned earlier, we'll do a pre-recorded webinar, and then we have a FAQ document or on the website you can go to that kind of helps. It's not all inclusive, but some questions we felt that are pretty good questions, we put them on the website. So even though UAIP closes today, if anybody sees it tomorrow, like, well, I missed out on this. Well, it's not that big of a deal. You can just prepare for next year, because we'll leave that, I call it old information, but we don't do a whole lot of changes from year to year. So it's still worth looking into and seeing, what we have now and prepare for next year's notice of opportunity. And in my presentation, I believe I have a link to sign up for our newsletter.
Yes.
And updates, and that'll help too, in terms of knowing when things are out and open and available. You can also go to grants.gov and set up alerts for urban. So anything that comes out urban related, not just our grants or our opportunities, but others, USDA wide or federal government wide, you'll get an alert for it. So just want to put that out there, in case anybody sees this tomorrow and be like, well, I missed the deadline. It's not the end of the world. You just prepare for next year.
Yeah, and Sharonté, I think anybody's allowed to get on the USDA mailing lists too, right? Like,
Yeah.
That's public, right? So they send out, I get a lot of emails from the USDA, and I feel like they keep you really well informed of all of the different opportunities, not just the grant opportunities, but opportunities to serve on committees or to get involved or to learn something or attend something. So if you get on those email distribution lists, once you go on the USDA site, like you can search on UAIP and stuff, and you get in there and you can sign up. That will then also send you information about the grants when they're out. And that's helpful. There's something else I was going to say too that might be helpful. I guess I was just going to say that I don't think that the grant applications are terribly overwhelming. Like, they're big, but they're not crazy. Like, don't think just because, oh my gosh, it's a federal grant, for those of you that haven't done them before, maybe, that it's going to be so overwhelming. That said, like, really looking through it and starting to plan out what you might do, like Sharonté said, if the application doesn't change a lot from year to year. So even just downloading and saying, could I answer all of these questions? Like, what would I have to do to be able to answer these? And what would I have to do to kind of shore up my partnerships or whatever it is? Like, the more in advance you can plan, the better, and it doesn't take a lot of time or work to do that, but just to sit down with like your group or whatever and start thinking through, how would we answer these? What would we ask for? What would we want to show? And it can get you so far along the path that when the application comes out, like you'll just be able to go through it.
Yeah, that is very helpful advice. Having gone through the application process before on a different USDA grant for farm to school grant. Before I forget, everyone, there is a Survey Monkey of like 5 questions, just to take 5 minutes or less, just to help us be able to get some more information about, you know, whether or not these webinar was a helpful webinar, so we can improve on our offerings for future webinars and workshops. But I just want to make sure, are there any other questions? Does anyone have anything they're curious, burning questions to ask any of our experts before we sign off for the hour, because we have a few more minutes.
I was just going to echo what Jennifer said, that the USDA, everyone I've interacted with has been wonderful and very responsive. So though I haven't gone through the application side of a USDA grant, the implementation phase, I felt that any questions that have come up, or even just trying to understand the grant portal or things like that, has been answered very quickly and with great explanation. So USDA is a great people to work with. So
We do, outside of, I know we're talking about now that the Notice of Fund Opportunity is live right now, but outside of that, we meet with stakeholders. So if anybody's interested for more in-depth, I kind of go through similar to what you saw earlier about, you know, what the program is about, what the requirements are for a specific program versus one or the other. We do that. Outside of that Notice of Funding Opportunity window, we do it all the time. Well, it's usually me. So if anybody's interested, we do kind of, you know, when people have questions, what about this? What about that? Or how do I do this? And kind of just share what we've seen from recipients or previous applicants. You know, if anyone has any questions, we do that. Just email our general inbox or me, and we'll set something up.
Great. Well, I hope that you get a lot of great applications, since this is the last day of the application window, Sharonté.
Yeah, we'll see
Confusing.
tomorrow.
Yeah,
It's always interesting to see, because you can't tell me otherwise at this point, because I'm convinced that all of the applications come in within the last 48 to 24 hours.
Right.
That's when they come in. So then all of a sudden it's like, oh man, we got 300 or so applications overnight. So we'll see. They pull them from grants.gov, and they'll be sent to us, and then we'll get rolling with the review process for this year.
Great.
Well, thank you for all you do, and the funding you provide and the support you provide. It's huge, makes a huge difference.
Thank you. You and Jennifer have been great.
Yeah. Thank you,
Alexis.
everyone, to our other presenters. And I will send out an email to everyone with all the information and the survey, the short survey as well again. And then please check back with our Eventbrite. We have more upcoming webinar. We have another upcoming webinar on April 17th around youth ag grants, and some upcoming workshops now that we're finally in spring, that are on site in person at Ruth Bennett's Community Farm. So we look forward to seeing some of you in the future, and thank you to all of our guests, and I will hopefully cross paths with you all in the future.
Absolutely. I'm sure we will. It's
I know, I'm sure we
small
will.
world around here, but
It
thank you
is.
for the opportunity.
Of course.
yes, thank you so much.
Yep. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.